Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today for our session on strategic marketing on a shoestring budget. My name is Kristy Bailey. I'm a presenter and an advisor for Business Station as part of the Digital Solutions Commonwealth Government program. So today I'm going to go through a range of aspects of marketing strategically and doing so with little or no money. And it is designed to be as interactive as possible, so please feel free to ask questions at any time. Use the chat or the Q&A functionality to stop me if you want to relate anything back to your specific business. I'll also have a few minutes at the end for anyone to ask questions as well. So we do have a lot to get through, so it's going to be pretty fast-paced today. And good morning to those guys that are saying by way of chat. Thanks for that. But yeah, so we've got a lot to get through. Keep in mind that everything that we go through is going to give you an intro into what else you can sort of delve into. So it's going to be an introduction into some new and interesting topics. Some things might be a bit revisited for you, whereas things, other concepts could be completely new. All right. Now, what we're going to cover today essentially is we're going to first of all look at the components of a marketing strategy and a marketing plan and how a strategy can in fact have huge financial benefits for your organization. We'll also identify a range of low-cost marketing tactics that you might be able to implement within your own businesses. And then we're also going to look at the importance of measuring and controlling your marketing activities to make sure that you're producing sales and spending your money effectively. So it will all sort of tie in together. All right, so first of all, to define marketing really is anticipating the needs and wants of targeted customers and managing the process through which those needs and wants are satisfied. But in doing so, you really have to do that profitably. A key word within this statement, though, is targeted. You have to know exactly who you're selling to so that you can know what their specific needs and wants are and therefore provide them exactly what they want and provide it where and how they want it. So one of the key elements of today's webinar is looking at the theory that successful marketing doesn't have to cost your small business significantly, but you do absolutely need to know the results of what you're doing so that you can ensure that you're spending your money in the right areas as well. And that's where strategic planning comes into it. So a lot of small business owners will generally create a business plan when they start up. Perhaps you need it for a bank or, just your initial business concept. But what happens is with the day-to-day running of the business, a lot of time tends to go by before you can before you do refer back to that plan, if at all. A lot can happen in your business in that time. So your priorities might shift. You may introduce new products or services. You could have key staff that come and go. So the best way to make sure that you're marketing effectively and reaching your goals is to go through that really important process of annual planning and referring back to your business plan. So each year, take the time to measure your progress and assess those specific steps that you're going to take in the coming year to make sure that you stay on track. That will then tie in with your marketing strategy and being able to market in a cost-effective way. So to define that strategic planning, all those strategic planning elements of your business, have a look at the pyramid that you see on your screen. Your marketing strategy has to align with the overall business plan and your business goals. It then defines the marketing mix, which is really your product, your price, your place, or your distribution and your promotion. And then the marketing plan is very simply the implementation of it all. So that's just allocating your marketing resources, implementing the individual activities and obviously budgeting for them at the same time. So what is a marketing strategy after saying all that? It's really the selection of a course of action that involves these specific customer groups, some specific communication methods and distribution channels, plus getting your pricing right. So it's a combination of your target markets and your marketing mixes. The advantages of strategically marketing or strategic planning is that it allows you to find and use what really works and then stay focused to that. And that's a really key thing from a cost-saving perspective, is finding what works and being dedicated to that and repeating, obviously, if it is working. So for most small businesses, the development of a strategic marketing plan comes, with a bit of overhead, paying someone to actually develop that plan for you, or at least the thought of it does. But hopefully what we can go through today will reassure you that you don't have to spend a lot of money on a marketing strategy. You can develop a strategy yourself. And that will then give you a lot of insight to marketing more strategically going forward and therefore saving yourself a lot of money. So you can do it. It doesn't have to be expensive And your marketing spend, your actual advertising dollars doesn't have to, your budget doesn't have to be huge either. So if you were to develop your own strategic marketing plan, this strategic planning process is fairly extensive. Now, for me, it generally takes a number of weeks to obtain information, analyze that information, you go back and forth, and then ultimately develop a strategy around everything that you've learned. So some key strategic areas that I would include in a strategic marketing plan are what you see on your screen. So I'll run through some of those. Now, some of them are really straightforward and quite obvious, and probably concepts and terms that you've heard before, or activities you may have done within your business before. But some of those strategy areas require a little bit more explanation. So we are going to go and expand on those shortly as well. But let's just run through what they are. First of all, your SWOT. Now, your SWOT, that's Marketing 101. Most people have heard of a SWOT, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. And it's assessing areas within your business. So strengths and weaknesses are internal factors, whereas opportunities and threats are external factors that have the ability to impact your business negatively or positively. A pest analysis is also another analytical tool that we use to develop basically, to research areas, again, that could positively or negatively impact your business. And that sits around political, economical, social, and technological factors. So that's the first four, the core four elements of a pest analysis. But some people, depending on the nature of your business, you also include environmental and legal factors. So it could be a pest analysis that you look at just the 4 factors, or it could be 6 if you include environmental and legal. Now, a competitor analysis, very, very straightforward, but not enough businesses do look at their competitors regularly. So comparing your company to your competitors, what do you know about your competitors? How much are they charging for similar products or services? What is their value to the customer? So what is their main unique selling proposition? What is it that they're pitching to customers that why do they want to stand out? And how do their products and services stack up to your business as well? So having a look at that really good comparison of your business to theirs. Looking at direct and indirect competitors. So keep in mind, you could have a competitor that is a business down the road, so similar location, offering very similar products or services. And then you could have a competitor that is an indirect competitor. So slightly different products or services, but people aren't going to purchase both. They're going to choose one or the other. So have a look at both direct and indirect competitors when you are doing a competitor analysis. Then you've got a sales analysis. So in terms of your strategic planning, always analyze your own sales results and have a look at, determine some planned growth areas or areas that you want to grow. Have a look at your business over however many years of data you've got, comparing year on year, month on month, season on season on how your sales have actually gone. As small business owners, we tend to know off the top of your head, 2020 was a bad year, or 2019 was our best year yet, or however. You kind of have that anecdotal information, but having it by way of actual reporting, I think, is really, really important. So actually putting that down on paper, on a graph, on a spreadsheet, and really comparing those results. So sales analysis is a key element of strategic planning, or of your strategic plan that you're developing. Your unique selling proposition is really important. Now, when you've assessed your competitors, you'll know what they're pitching to customers. So you'll know what they're trying to say is their key point of difference. But it's really important that you define yours. Now, your unique selling proposition should differ from your competitors. It should be, what is it about your company that's truly unique, that sets you apart, that is desired by your clients. So have a look at that. Your target market is really important. I think that's one of the most important elements of strategic planning. So we're going to go into that in more detail shortly. Your marketing mix, I'll go into a little bit more detail on that as well, but that's fairly straightforward, just essentially your 4 Ps, your product, your place, your price, and your promotion. And your financial analysis, or your budgeting. So having a look at your financial analysis in terms of what you're going to spend on marketing and what you've spent in the past. Now, I get the question all the time, what should you be spending on marketing? Now, there's no right or wrong answer there. It's really what you can afford in a business. But the benchmark is that between 4 and 10% of your revenue should be spent on marketing. And it's said that 4%, or that 4% end of the scale, will maintain your market position, whereas towards the 10% will grow that market position, and potentially take some of the market off your competitors. But in terms of your budgeting, you have to consider a few factors. You have to know what you can afford, obviously, as a business. You have to know what expenses there are going to be associated with your advertising, so design costs, web development, employee costs, that kind of thing. You'll have to know your anticipated cash flow. So if you spend X amount on marketing and get the sales results that you want, when are you going to get the cash? So when are you going to actually have the cash to spend on marketing as well? And have a look at what any changes to those critical assumptions could potentially do to your business. Now, as I mentioned, some of those strategy areas are really straightforward and obvious and things that you can go away and have a look at yourself, but some do require a little bit more explanation. So I'm going to expand. And first of all, I believe target markets are the most important component of your marketing strategy. And the key thing is you have to know who your target markets are. Now, another key thing about target markets is a target market is not who you get through your door. A target market is a market segment that has been selected by your business for marketing attention. So you've chosen this market. Now, through research, you might know who your target market is or who it could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be who is currently coming through your doors, as I mentioned. And whilst you're doing this research, you might find that there's target segments that no one's reaching or communicating to, or there might be target segments that are being served by your competitors, but your competitors aren't doing a very good job at that. Or there could be other target segments that you'd like them to come through your doors, or you'd like them to be your core customers, but they're saturated with options, so they're going to be a lot more difficult to get to. So you really have to do and understand this in your research. Now, to be a viable market segment, a segment should really meet 4 key criteria. First of all, the individuals or the businesses in that segment should be homogenous. Now, that means that they should all be alike. So they have to be grouped based on their core characteristics. They have to differ from the general population and be different to other market segments. So you can have many target markets or many market segments, but they have to differ significantly to one another. So they have to be grouped very carefully. Now, the third is that they have to be large enough to be financially viable. So you might have a market segment that comes through your doors and customers that you regularly get, but they have to be big enough to support their own marketing campaign or advertising campaign for them to be a target market for you. So you're not going to say no to those people that come through your door, but you do really need to make sure that if you're diverting your marketing attention to them, you're going to get that return. Now, the last criteria just sits around that they have to be reachable through some type of media. Generally, it's not a problem. In Australia, again, think about who the decision maker is. If it's a child that uses your product or service, chances are the decision makers are the parents. So again, think about who the target market is by way of who you're communicating to and who's making that decision. Now, customer segments or customer markets, I should say, can be segmented or divided along a number of different dimensions. The most common is demographics because it's the easiest, but other characteristics or other ways to segment your audience could be psychographics. It could be through generations, their geographic location, or through their behaviours and benefits and usage. So consider all elements, include, like I said, psychological as well as more demographical. And keep in mind that if you don't have a clear image of who your target market is, as a small business, you try to reach everybody, and then what happens is you end up appealing to nobody, essentially. So you should really be able to very clearly describe, even visualize who your target market is. And like I said, you can have multiple market segments. That's absolutely fine and completely normal. It's just a matter of really defining who they are. Now, you might also have different segments that appeal, different products that appeal to different segments. So you might have one product and your target market is target customer A for that particular product, and then product B might appeal to a totally different target customer. So that's absolutely fine as long as you can align your products and your markets to know your true targets there. So you will hear me refer back to target markets a lot today, and I apologize in advance if anyone is online today that has heard any of my workshops. It's something I'm very passionate about, so it will keep popping up, and it truly is the key thing when it comes to marketing. If you know exactly who you're talking to, you know where they consume media, and then you place your advertising and your marketing directly in front of them. So it becomes really, that's the core thing about being strategic and doing so with a low budget. Now, you also need to consider your marketing mix. Now, this is another element I'm going to expand on. Your marketing mix includes these controllable factors that have been chosen by you to satisfy your customer needs. So the 4 controllable factors are product, price, your place, and your promotion. But keep in mind, depending on the nature of your business, there is also talk of 7 Ps if you include people, process, and physical environment. So we're only going to talk about the 4 Ps today because it's the most common. And like I said, it really depends on your business as to whether all 7 Ps or just the 4 suit you. First of all, your products. Does your range, your product range, complement each other? And does it suit who you've identified as your target audience as well? So thinking about that, do you need to make any changes to appeal more to your target market now that you've redefined your target market? You can't expect your market to change to suit your product. You will always have to be changing your product to suit a changing market. So keep that in mind. Price, looking at how your pricing suits your target market and how does it compare to your competitors as well. Also consider how does each price in your product range look alongside each other. So if you've got 3 products and they're all quite similar, but your pricing is really different, doesn't make sense to your customers because they're going to be potentially comparing your products or your services. So making sure that your products sit well from a price perspective, or services, I should say. Also looking at your pricing and making sure that it allows for enough profit. Now, this is a really key thing. I work with small businesses all the time, and when you say, what's your most profitable products or service, they're like, oh, not really too sure. So that's a really interesting thing. Have a look at what's working for you and what's not. You want to sell more of the products that are more profitable and potentially less of the products that are less profitable, but time and a range of other factors come into that as well. All right, then you've got your place, which is also known as distribution. This is where your buyers will look for your product or service. It could be online, it could be direct, it could be through some kind of wholesale program or through an agent or an on-seller. Think about how you can access the right distribution channels. If you do wholesale your products, then you might have to go back to your pricing and incorporate that into your strategy as well, and make sure that you've got a wholesale price strategy and that you're still profitable in those areas. And then you've got promotion. So what is your strategy around promoting your product or service? Where are you going to market it? How are you going to get to your market if you're attracting consumers directly? Where specifically do these target markets consume media and advertising, and what type of methods are going to appeal to them? So again, you have to know your target audience very, very well to be able to know where they're going to, how and where you're going to promote your product or service. So that's, again, tying into your target markets. It's a key element. All right, so that's an absolute fly through of the development of a marketing strategy. It really does take time and patience while you research, but we could talk about strategy all day. In fact, I've run 8-hour workshops on developing a marketing strategy, so I won't bore you with those details today. But I guess the key point here was to understand that you can be very targeted and you can spend your funds, particularly if funds are limited, very, very well with a solid strategy behind you. The key reasons that you should be strategically planning are that it really composes a big picture, and it does it through pinpointing your specific target markets and knowing the markets that you will serve as a small business. Determining your customers' needs and wants through market research, and make sure that you're satisfying those needs and wants and adapting your product if you're not. Because as I said, you can't expect your customers to change their needs and wants to suit your product. It has to be the other way around. It also allows you to analyze your competitive advantages, I should say, and then you can build a marketing strategy around what makes your business differ and stand out from others. And the last point there is that you can create a marketing mix that meets your customer needs and wants. So that's a really key thing. You need to make sure that you're always meeting your customers' needs and wants through how you're communicating to them. So some key considerations here are that your strategic planning has to match your resources and capabilities for long-term growth and survival. You have to factor in all components to get that true big picture. If you leave out something, so let's say you left out some external research, you would only be looking internally at your own organisation. Vice versa, if you only looked at external research, you would miss what you're already doing and what your sales results have been and who your customers are now. So you really have to factor in all components to get that big picture. Now, I also believe that strategic marketing should be an integrated activity. So you try and involve as many areas of your business as you're going through and developing your strategic marketing plan. So you, as a business owner, might be very much back of house and looking after the finances and, the operational side of things. You might miss something, some crucial information of what's going on in the front line, or vice versa. So I would recommend to involve as many of your team members as possible, or at least a selection of core team members to talk about marketing, and do that at the very least on an annual basis, to have, a strategy day type thing. Everyone can generate ideas and give feedback. Now, if you're marketing, you have to understand what you're doing and how that could impact other areas of your business. So you can talk through that. You might have a campaign that you want to develop, and you can talk through the nuts and bolts of that. If we offer to give this product for free for everyone that buys products, how does that look operationally? Does that work? And those kind of things. So that integrated aspect is really important. Now, the most important element of marketing on a shoestring budget, again, is that you need to know exactly who you're talking to. You need to know what products they want and where they consume media. And then, I should say, where their consume media is where you should advertise. And then no marketing dollar will be wasted. So keep that in mind. The strategy that sits behind it all is very, very important. But now we're going to look at some low-cost marketing activities and talk through some ideas that might be suitable for your business and are extremely doable yourself and at a low cost. All right, so you've done the research, you know your specific audience and who you're targeting your advertising towards. So therefore where they consume media. Now, I believe there's some essential low-cost marketing activities, and they should include, I've bullet pointed them on your screen, but first of all, I'm going to flesh them out a little bit, and then we're going to go into some more online sort of focused activities after that. But online, I believe that you should do an online audit to make sure that your online setup is extremely solid. Now, this will include your website, your SEO, remarketing, which I'll talk to you about soon, as at a minimum. I would look at getting referrals and reviews online, making sure that you're listening to those reviews, that you've got alerts set up and you're responding to them. Now, you can do that through Google, through Facebook, through industry-specific review sites like, what are there? There's Urban Spoon, there's TripAdvisor, there's a range, but depending on your industry, know where you receive reviews. The next element I've mentioned there is to personalize your marketing. Email and social media, you can, or with email and social media, I should say, you can talk to your audience and you can talk about relevant events, at relevant times of the year. If you're obtaining an email database, you can then talk more specifically to those people based on what you know about them. You can give them products and offers that are tailored specifically to them because you've recorded more information in them about them in your database. I would always recommend creating new customer offers to get people in. Once you've got customers in, they cost very little to keep, subject to how well you serve them as customers, so your customer service. But stay in touch with those clients once you get them in and keep them in that cycle. Don't lose them after just one interaction. Your USP, nail your USP, and then focus on developing content that really highlights what it is that truly makes you unique, and storytell about this element of your business through all of your content. Now, your content will be your social media, it'll be your blog posts, it'll be throughout your website, your brochures, any advertising. So make sure that you focus on that USP and really use it as an opportunity to storytell. Now, as small businesses, we're really fortunate that we do have a story about the story. In most cases. So make sure that you are really telling that story. PR, my next favorite topic after target market. So be your own PR advocate. We do have a media and PR training session specifically talking about this and how you can get free publicity and engage with the media. So look out for that. But as a small business owner, you absolutely can generate PR and you can be your own PR advocate. So try and look out for that if you can, but look at opportunities to get PR for your business. Now, that could be anything through launch of events. It could be through your business story and who you are. So keep that in mind. Also look at sponsoring events. Again, with sponsoring events, have a look and make sure that your target market matches the market that's going to be at that event. So sponsoring events is a great opportunity and a good PR opportunity if the audience is right. If you've got a room full of people that are likely to buy your product or service, that's really important. If they're not likely to buy your product or service, then it's a complete waste of time. So keep that in mind. And the last point here is don't forget about grassroots marketing. So don't forget about things like signs, handouts, billboards on your own venue, and do consider traditional marketing as well. Now, it could work for you depending on your budget, depending on what the offer is. So always consider all marketing opportunities. So we're going to further explore some key online marketing tactics now and how you can best market your business online, because every business, no matter your industry, should be online. And you can maximize your online presence to get new business and really capitalize on every marketing dollar spent online. Now, online advertising can be extremely targeted, and of course, it's very trackable as well. So it takes out any guesswork as to whether what you're doing is actually producing the right results. So that's why online marketing is so fantastic when you're working on a shoestring budget. All right. Now, at the core of your online marketing is your website. But keep in mind, it's only part of your strategy. Potential customers need to be able to find that site. You also need to be able to actively engage with current and future customers online as well. So we'll talk more about being found shortly. But first, your website itself is a place where customers can go to find out about your products and services, to make purchases, even if your physical store or your physical premises are closed, or maybe you don't have a physical premises at all. So I think of your website as your 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week salesperson, your number one salesperson. So considering that, is your website doing your business justice? Is it selling your product or service as it should? Now, some key web design elements to consider are, first of all, the images on your site. Does it have large hero images that really highlight and tell the story of your product? And do those images feature your target market? So you have to be able to, as consumers, we like to be able to emotionally connect with brands. If we see people like us or who we aspire to be through imagery, it does send a message that we're in the right place. So keep that in mind. Navigation, is your navigation easy? Have you tested your navigation with family and friends that are trying to buy something from your site? Can they move around your online, your website and make purchases, inquiries, or what it is that your website is aiming to do? Strong calls to action are really important. A shop now, a buy now, a contact us. What is it that you want people to do on your site? And are you clear about getting them to do that? So that's called a call to action, generally by way of a button or some kind of reminder as to what you want people to do. When people are ready to convert to customers, you don't want them to go searching for how to do that. You want that to be really, really obvious. The next element is it being fully responsive. So fully responsive means that it looks good no matter what device it appears on. So that could be a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile. So have a look at the picture that you see on the screen. That's an example of a responsive site. Where it's adapted its shape based on the device that it's being viewed on. That's really important. It's really important for SEO, and it's really important for the customer as well. You don't want people to have difficult experiences with you online on a device, but your website works perfectly on desktop. So have a look at that. The next element is content. Is there plenty of content? Can customers get enough information about your business online? And does that content flow? So does it make sense? Now, keep in mind, content is really important for how well you rank. So Google needs content on the website to understand what the website's about. And also though imagery is the most important thing to sell your product, content is really fundamental in that SEO success, essentially. So keep that in mind. Content also has to answer enough questions. So if you're finding that you're getting lots of phone calls from people going, are you open on Sundays? Then chances are that's information that really needs to be on your website so that people don't have to take that effort to give you a call. Now, everything about your website should be speaking to and aimed at your target markets, like I said. So think about things like design, colors, fonts, the technology, the functionality. It's all about who you're aiming your marketing towards. So go back and think about your target market there and make sure that your website will absolutely appeal to them. Now, my next point is we're sort of leading into our SEO. Having a great website is one thing, but you also need people to be able to find that site. So you could spend thousands of dollars on having the most amazing website, but if no one's going to be able to find it, or you're not going to get any visitors to it, it's a waste of time. So that's where the SEO side of things comes in. Now, with SEO, we're going to start to get a little bit more technical, but I just want to reassure you that everything that I'm talking about today, there is further learning available on. So we have an amazing webinar and a range of advisors that specialize in SEO, also keyword research, which I'm going to talk about soon, and anything else that I talk about today. So keep that in mind. Now, SEO, for those that don't know, it stands for search engine optimization. So in simple terms, it's a process of improving your website to increase its visibility for relevant searches or search engines. So on search engines. Now, for SEO to be effective or worth your while, you have to start with keyword research. Now, I would recommend that you do keyword research before you do any SEO or make any changes whatsoever to your website. So think about what people are actually searching to get to your site. Now, there's a number of tools that you can use to do keyword research. There's the Google Keyword Planner tool. There's extensions in Chrome that you can use. We actually have an entire webinar on keyword research. But what keyword research does is it takes, basically, you will take the time to brainstorm what people might be searching to get to your website. Through keyword research, you actually prove what those monthly search volumes are for specific terms. Once you've defined what those specific terms are that people are searching to get to sites like yours, the next step is for your website, to improve its ranking of those key terms in search engines like Google. Now, good SEO is a combination of hundreds of different tactical efforts. SEO is changing and evolving, so things that you may have done, in the last few years can be completely different today. So you always have to be updating your SEO and fine-tuning your SEO program. Now, SEO does take time. I would allow at least a few weeks to a month before you start to see any results. And because it is a constantly changing landscape, you have to continually keep up to date with the latest algorithms and then modify your SEO accordingly. Like I said, things that worked in the past may not work anymore. Now, SEO has two elements. There's on-page SEO, which is everything that happens on your website that impacts how well you will rank in key search terms. And then there's off-page SEO, which is everything that happens away from your website that directs people back to your site. So we're going to flesh out those two components now, but just do keep in mind, if things start to get a bit too technical, or if you're starting to go, I don't really understand some of these concepts, that's absolutely fine. We have got amazing SEO webinars and advisors, so there's absolutely more technical help available. So let's have a look at some on-page SEO. Some of these things I'm going to expand on, but the first few things we'll just talk through. First of all, you've got readable URLs. Now, readable URLs, that's pretty straightforward. That's just the actual URL on each of the pages of your website and making sure that it's readable and it's descriptive. So a good URL might be yourwebsite.com.au/about us. A bad version of that might be yourwebsite.com.au/ and then a coded sort of range of letters and characters. Now, sometimes your content management system, when you create a new page, will automatically give it a sort of a coded URL. It's your job to make sure that they actually make sense and it is a readable URL. Internal links are really important. Now, these are links within your website. So let's say your homepage talks about your range of product A, product B, product C. When you mention product A, that should link directly to the page that the information on product A sits on. Product B should link to the page of product B, as an example. Now, keep in mind, it needs to be, if it's easy for the customer, it's going to do well with Google. So it's easy for the customer because they're reading content, and as you talk about the content, with one click they can get to that page. So that's obviously going to be a lot more convenient for the customer than going up to the menu, finding the page that relates to and going that way, which is why then, like I said, it works well from an SEO perspective. 301 redirects are really important. So that's if you're changing pages. Let's say you take down a page, you always do a redirection so that rather than people going to a dead page or a page that has an oops message or something like that, you'll redirect them to another page. So it's like a mailed redirection type thing. You don't want people to go to dead pages, and search engines don't want to be sending people to dead pages either. Your page load time is really important. So keep an eye on the speed. Keep in mind image sizes can impact that, and make sure that you test your speed regularly. If you're making changes to your website, you could do something that impacts the speed. Again, no consumers want to go to websites that are going to be slow to load or have speed issues. And search engines like Google don't want to send customers to pages that are doing those, that are loading slow as well. Now, there's also page title tags, meta descriptions, and alt tags, but we're going to expand on those because that does start to get a bit technical. So I'll show you through that as opposed to just talking about it. All right. So what you see here is a page title tag. So what's in that red box is a page title tag. Now, each of the pages in your website will have its own unique title tag. Now, that should include the main keywords that you've researched for that page. So it's not the headline that's displayed on the actual page itself. This is only visible in code view. So you'll see that it says it's coded, with a title reference. But this is this part here that you see in red that comes up in Google and other search engines, and that's sort of the main title in their search results. So, for example, here what you see is I've searched Aspas Perth, and that's what comes up. So the optimal length is about 60 characters. Now that's long enough to display a good title without getting cut off. Don't use stop words like the, is, and, that kind of thing, because they don't have any SEO value. Now the preferred format is to put your primary keywords first, so that they are the ones that are ranked best. So aside from being a critical factor for Google web bots, these page title tags are really important because they can heavily influence users. Because if it does make sense and it is interesting to the user and relevant to the user, it's more likely to be clicked. So do make sure that it makes sense, because that is your ultimate goal, is to get people to click it and get through to your website. Meta descriptions. Now, this is the second part here that you see, the bottom part in the red box. Now, this isn't visible on any part of your website except if you're looking at the SEO component of your content management system or in the HTML code. This is the little description that's found under your title in search results. It doesn't actually affect your ranking in search engines, but if it's well written, it will really encourage people to click through to your website, which is obviously the ultimate goal. I would consider this as a mini ad for your web page, and it's completely free. So keep in mind, if you don't enter a meta description for your pages, Google's going to do it for you. And the way Google does it is takes a small sample from the text of that particular page. Sometimes it could be cut off. Maybe it's not relevant to your actual keywords. So make sure you take control of this element. It's only 160 characters. So only use 160 to make sure your text doesn't get cut off, and don't use the same meta description for every page. So each page of your website is unique. So make sure that you write a meta description that is unique for each page and each description of the page. Like I said, it's like a mini ad for your website, and it's great to get people to actually click through. Now, alt tags and heading tags are the two things that you see on the screen here. On the left-hand side are alt tags. Now, alt tags are used for images. They're essentially HTML tags that you can use to describe what an image is. So search engines can't see images. So if it doesn't have a description, they'll have no idea what that image is or if it's even relevant. So if Google web bots can find your image because it is correctly labeled, then your images might appear in a Google search, or it will help towards the SEO for that particular page. So it is a good idea to include local keywords or the title of the page with the keywords that you're trying to rank for each image. Keep that in mind. Now, on the right-hand side are heading tags. Now, heading tags are important for SEO, And the reason they're important is because they help both the reader of your content, but also Google web bots to determine what the content is on your page and how important it is, essentially. So as a web reader, you'll glance over a page and that heading will be really important to draw your eyes to specific topics. So, you know, the big heading on a page will be your H1. So that's what the entire page is about. And then you might have smaller headings to break up content. So you might have a heading above a paragraph that might be an H2, or something smaller that's an H3 or an H4. So each heading tag is weighted. H1 is the most important, and that's it, like I said, the main page heading. And then it goes down in that scale from there. So make sure that you make use of those. I see many websites that haven't got the headings tagged correctly. So make sure that you do for SEO, but also, as I said, for the user. All right. That's on-page SEO. Now we're going to look at off-page SEO or off-site SEO. Now, this is actions that are taken outside of your own website to impact your rankings within your search engine result pages. Now, off-page SEO tends to make up the majority of your SEO strategy because it really helps build the credibility of your website. You want your website to rank above others that have a similar message. So to achieve that, you have to really build your website's authority. There's a few ways to do that. Link building is one of them. Now, link building is the process of getting external pages to link to a page on your website. Building links can be complicated and time-consuming. And not all links are created equal either. So it's important to know that. So a link from a more authoritative website will make a much greater impact on your search engine results page than a link from a newly built or low quality website. So basically, web bots will count all the links that come into your website, but they're not all equal. So they'll give more weight to quality links and then rank accordingly. So if your website had 100 poor quality links, but your competitor had 15 good quality links, then chances are that your competitor is going to rank higher than you. So that's really something really important to know. Also keep in mind, Google's become really good at spotting a scam. So you should only ever have a good quality link. And that should come from a trusted and a reputable site, or a site that's related to your type of business. Generally speaking, that will be difficult to come by, and you have to have some kind of human intervention to implement. So a membership, for example, or some kind of business connection to be able to get a link like that. Generally speaking, it should be on a page that has content that's related to the content that it's linking to. So don't just always send or have these links come to your homepage. If it's going to a specific page, that's better. And generally, it should add value to whoever's reading it so that they want to click through and they're more likely to click through. Now, some ways to get good backlinks. First of all, you can earn them. So if you're writing great quality content, now this content could be unique, it could be useful or thought-provoking, it could be something that's educational or more authoritative, and really exceptional content that you're posting on social media or something like that. You might find people want to link to it. They want to link from their content through to yours, or even share it. So keep that in mind. Keep your content engaging, keep it fresh, and make sure that it's shareable as well. Building backlinks is another great way to link build. So that's through networking and relationships, like I said, memberships, that kind of thing. You need a bit of a plan of action there, but make contact with other website owners and managers and people that you work with, especially let's say you're a supplier for a particular product. You might want to be listed as a supplier on their website and a link to your page, something like that. So keep in mind those kind of business relationships. You can create backlinks yourself by adding your website to business directories, things like Yellow Pages, True Local, and a few of those kind of guys. They're actually really quite good for those inbound links, or other niche websites that might be relevant to your business. Another way to get links, or to consider what links might be available to you, is to check out your competitors. So I think this is one of the easiest ways of getting backlinks that's often overlooked. Have a look what your competitors are doing, Google their business names and see what websites they come up for. If those websites could also be relevant to your business, maybe click through to them and see if the pages include a backlink to your rival or your competitor's webpage. And if they do, see if you can pursue a similar opportunity. Definitely can't hurt. Then you've got non-link related off-page SEO. So earning links from external websites is definitely the most commonly practiced form of SEO or off-page SEO. But any activity that occurs outside of your website and helps to improve your search ranking can be thought of off-site SEO. So your social media marketing and the activity, the comments, shares, and collective likes that you get around that really help. So keep that in mind. Anything like guest blogging, let's say you have someone blog about you. If there's an unlinked brand mention, it does help because it's still a brand mention, but ideally you want to get that linked. So keep that in mind and try and generate those links by just asking for them. I've had a similar situation recently where I simply asked the organisation that had written something about a business I was working with for the link, and they said, yep, no worries. It was just not something they had considered, but it has huge SEO value. So keep that in mind as well. Now, that's SEO, and a quick run through SEO. As I mentioned, we have a lot more information available on SEO. And SEO is ranking organically when people search, but there's also SEM, which is search engine marketing, where you can set up advertising and you pay per click. So we're not going to get into pay-per-click advertising today because it is an extensive topic. And again, a topic that we cover through a lot of other mechanisms, but I'm going to just tell you about one form of Google AdWords, which is called remarketing. Now, done correctly, remarketing can be really great for increasing your brand awareness, and it really does influence conversions at a very low cost. Now, it's a very simple concept. Have a look at the diagram on the screen. Basically, you're just reinforcing your brand to people who have already visited your website. So somehow they've come to your website. It could have been signage on your car or a brochure or flyer, but they get to your website and they're tracked. Now, when they leave your site, your ads will then appear in banners or pop-ups on other sites that they browse. So you most definitely have been a recipient of remarketing at some stage. If you've not noticed it or not, you will have been a recipient. So keep it in mind, it's low cost because you don't pay until people actually click your ad and go back to your website. So sometimes they never do. It's just that constant reinforcement of your brand. The other thing to keep in mind is not only the constant reinforcement of your brand, but it also you set the rules around that. So if you don't want too heavy influence or a presence, you can scale that back and show your ads only 4 times to people, or you can really scale it up like some of the bigger companies you see, they're actually quite aggressive in this space. So you set the rules around that. You set how many days you advertise to people. You might know that if people haven't made a decision in the first day, they're not going to book your product or buy your product or service. So keep that in mind as well. You set all the rules around it, and you only pay once they click, and therefore they go back to your site. Because they've already been on your site, there's a pretty high chance that they're going to convert at that point. So that's why it's a really good form of pay-per-click advertising. And if you're not doing anything else, I would recommend doing this at the very least. Okay, so that really critical part of marketing effectively and doing so on that limited budget is controlling and measuring your marketing. So essentially, you'll define the method of measurement before you launch any advertising. But keep in mind, you have to evaluate all marketing activities. Defining that measurement beforehand really helps because it allows you, you make sure you've got that measurement mechanism in place. But compare your goals and the results and identify any deviations and what the cause of that deviation may have been. Once you've identified that, you can formulate new plans and actions by correcting problems. Let's say, your results went exceptionally well, you can exploit those opportunities. You might want to put more budget to it or extend a campaign, but you need to measure it and have a method of measuring or a mechanism to measure to know if it has gone well or poorly. But do make sure that you stay disciplined and follow your price and your quantity objectives and make adjustments if conditions change. Now, if conditions do change, you might need to adapt your marketing plan to suit the new conditions. It could be things like bad weather, lockdowns. It could be things completely beyond your control. But revise your quantity objectives in your sales and then reset the campaign. So adjust things and learn from what the changing conditions has been. Now, I believe the very best marketing strategy and marketing plan is one that's reviewed often. And when you do learn lessons from 1 year or one period to the next, you carry that over. So make sure you've got your own reporting set up to be able to learn from what you're actually doing. You don't want this anecdotal, this feeling of, yeah, that campaign went pretty well. That campaign we did back in 2019, we got heaps of sales. You want really quantifiable amounts and actions and items here. So you want to really be recording everything. So in saying that, you might be wondering what to measure. So I would recommend, at a minimum, you set up monthly reporting to measure a few of the things that you see on the screen there, which I'll run through. But first of all, your sales and your leads. Your total sales are really important to measure. Now, this might be sales of specific products and services. It will be also the cost associated with your marketing spend and your lead acquisition. How many leads you got is really important, but your conversion rates on leads as well. So how many leads you got versus how many sales. So how many people were you able to convert and how many perhaps not. Your web stats are really important. So your unique users, so how many monthly users you get into your site that are unique, how many sessions, that a session versus a user will be unique, how many people came to your site, whereas sessions might tell you that one visitor returns over and over again to your site. Have a look at things like your average page views. That tells you how committed they are to your website or how engaged they are with your business, how many pages they're going into and what depth and time they're spending on your site is also important. Through Google Analytics, you can set up goals and conversions, so you can determine, just hitting contact us is a goal. So you can start measuring through things like Google Analytics. You can also have a look at referral traffic. So where external traffic is coming from, is it coming from some of your partnerships through link building and those kind of things? So having a look at that. And then your social media stats, I think they're also really important to have a look at. How many times you post is important, but you'll sort of have an idea of that. But your engagement per post is more important. So you want to know how many likes, comments, shares, that true engagement per post, and then post more of what's getting the engagement and post less of what's not getting the engagement. But again, social media is its own beast, and we have many, many workshops on a range of social media topics. But just make sure that you're reporting all of this information. A nice central report, I think, is always good. A monthly reporting. You spend the time to actually develop the report and you can analyze it as you go, and then it gives you something to look back on in subsequent months and years. All right, guys, so that completely wraps up our session on strategic marketing on a shoestring budget. I hope it makes sense, and I hope there's some things that you can take out of it to improve your marketing or at least be a little bit more strategic. In terms of all of the concepts that we went through, like I said, there's further information on it all. So I'd really encourage you, if there's anything that you want more on, reach out to us. Through the government program, the Digital Solutions program, you get access to up to 7 hours of personalised mentorship and professional development sort of guidance. So you can have 3 hours with an advisor one-on-one. That's all just for $44 as part of the program. So keep that in mind. If you're not already a part of it, please, I really encourage you to get involved while this is still available. It only runs through to September, so get on board. There are some basic eligibility around this. So you have to be in WA, Queensland or NT with an ABN registered in one of those states or territories. You have to be a business that's operating for profit and employ fewer than 20 full-time staff. So thank you very much. I've just received some beautiful comments online. So thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it today. I know it's so much to go through. It's a really jam-packed webinar with a lot of concepts, but hopefully it's a nice summary of some of the exciting things that you can do, and you can reach out for more info. I will stay online now, so if anyone's got any questions, reach out, but otherwise you'll get a recording of this as well. And thank you, Wendy, for your comment. I really do appreciate it. Lovely to spend the hour with you guys. And yeah, like I said, chuck in any comments there, but otherwise hopefully we chat again.